Good Friday morning and welcome to Commentators Corner. Happy West Side Day, everybody. Tyler Reedy and Brendan Prizeman here with you to close out this week. Couldn't get an episode out last week because of the snow day, but we're back and it's a big day. Got a swim meet at Burke at 4:30, followed by the huge basketball game against West Side tonight. So, Brendan, good to be with you.
It certainly is, and it's good that for the first time in a while we've got a West Side prep game that really means something. Over the past decade or so, since the 2011-12 season, these two teams have played 12 games. 6 of them have had final margins of victory of 4 points or less, including their one tournament game, a 74-70 West Side victory in 2020, right before everything started to shut down, that ended a very good prep team season. Now, not only is this still a rivalry game, it's also potentially for the title of best team in Class A right now. Right now, West Side, I'd say, is the clear number one. I don't think anyone could debate that, especially after their convincing double-digit victory over Millard North at Millard North. They're 14-1. Guys like Chucky Hepburn, Hunter Salas are gone. Isaac Trout, Luke Jungers, Jason Green, guys like that still remain. But this is definitely, as you mentioned to me a couple days ago, a little bit of a weaker bracket than last year. There's not as much high-end talent as there used to be, but there is still a lot of high-end talent. West Side's got a lot of great players, like even Caleb Benning, who's their 7th or 8th guy off the bench, is top 50 Class A in assists, field goal percentage, and three-point percentage. He's had 11 points in 2 games this year and 9 games shooting 50% from the field or better. So they are a deep, deep team. We talked to Jaden Taylor a couple times, West Side's main media guy, and he says that they can go 9 deep pretty easily. So that could be problematic, but Prep also seems to be figuring out the rotation. It was a rough start to the year, marred by an inexplicable loss to Gretna the game before Christmas in the Cage, where Prep shot 38% and failed to crack 50 points for the first time all year, which is still the only time so far that they failed to crack 50 points this year. But they seem to have figured it out. Luke Jungers is currently 12th in Class A in scoring, while also being top 15 in both field goal percentage and three-point percentage. He's been a huge help for Prep. Martell Levins, though he's slowed down slightly over the past couple of games, is still borderline top 25 in scoring. He's also first on the team in assists and second on the team in rebounds.
Yeah, and I think this game between Prep and West Side really starts a huge 3-week or 4-week period or so in Class A where we're really going to find out whether the potential state situation is something where you have 2 or 3 teams at the top that are on a whole new level of their own, like Bell West, Millard North, and Prep were last year, or if it's a situation where there are about 5 or 6 teams and it's anybody's game and anyone can beat one of the top dogs on any given night, because you have Prep West Side, there's a West Side Central game in there. Bell West plays Millard North. Obviously, Prep has Bell West, Central, and Millard North by the end of the year. So this is going to be a huge time of year just to figure out what exactly the potential state tournament and odds for a state title situation are for some of these top 6 teams. But, yeah, like you said, West Side, they're a team I kind of compare to last year's Prep team, because if you remember going back to 2019-2020, our sophomore year, Prep was able to bring back everybody but Spencer Shomers. You had City, Wiley, Rollins, Buckley, and then a couple of key bench players as well. And the thing about those guys is there's a lot of talent. There's plenty of great defense and team play, but in terms of offers and getting looks from colleges, none of them really jumped off the page a way that a Hepburn or a Salas would. And quite frankly, that's the same way it is with the West Side. They're bringing back their whole starting lineup from last year, but none of them are guys that are getting huge D1 offers like some of the guys we saw coming out of Omaha last year. So this is a team that has the experience of kind of getting punched in the mouth. They lost a heartbreaking district game in the finals to Millard West last season that kept them out of the state tournament. And they're hungry for revenge. They've already got a tournament under their belt, winning the Metro Conference tournament in December. So, this West Side team, with the exception of one loss in just their second game of the season, they've been on a roll.
Yeah, and they got their revenge for that loss, too, because that was a loss to Millard North, I believe, where Millard North did a pretty good job at giving the blueprint to beat this Warriors team. They're the only team to successfully execute that blueprint so far, obviously, as evidenced by the 14-1 record of the Warriors. But they shot the ball really well. 56% from the field, 40% from three, 83% from the free throw line. David Harmon and Nick Dolezal, two of their big men, combined for 41 points. But then Westside played them again in, I believe, the semifinal of the Metro tournament and beat them by 13. It was a tied game heading into the fourth quarter, and then Westside erupted. They also shot the ball well, 54% from the field, 42% from three. Since then, their only real challenge has been a game at Bellevue West, which was the day after that, but they forced 17 turnovers, shot 49% from the field, 47% from three, and won a fairly close game, but not that close, 76-68 in favor of the Warriors. So right now, I'd say that they're the prohibitive favorite to take state.
Yeah, absolutely. They're number one until further notice. We're just going to have to see if a team like Prep or a team like Central, who they play on February 11th, can potentially take them out. But yeah, huge game tonight, Prep Westside. I saw last 18 years or so, Creighton Prep is 14-6 in the rivalry against Westside on the basketball court. So it's been mostly Junior Jays as of late, although Westside was able to knock Prep out of the state tournament a couple of years ago. Prep 2-0 against the Warriors last year, including a 62-39 victory in the middle of January. So, you know, Westside wants to bounce back after back-to-back losses to Prep. But that's a big game. That'll be at Westside. And then Omaha Bryan comes here to the Hyder Center at 2:30 to play Prep on Saturday. And then next week, Papio South on Tuesday, Bell West on Saturday, those both on the road. And after this Saturday, Prep's not going to be back home until February 15th for Millard North. So, yeah, big road trip.
Yeah.
The schedule just flipping over from last year. But speaking of big games, let's talk about the NFL Divisional Round. We've got 4 games on the slate over the next 2 days, starting with tomorrow, Saturday at 3:30, Cincinnati at Tennessee. Bengals coming off the dramatic win over the Raiders that came down to the last possession. Titans obviously getting the bye week as the 1 seed, and Tennessee's a 3.5-point favorite, but I'm really struggling with this game because, I mean, I want to go with Cincinnati because of, you know, the whole narrative, and Joe Burrow's hot, and that offense has been dynamite as of late, and we don't know what exactly Derrick Henry's usage will be back, or it will be in his first game back. But at the same time, Cincinnati, with the full offense, including Joe Burrow, has only played 1 road game since November the 28th. All of those huge monster Joe Burrow games have been at home at Paul Brown Stadium. The only road game was at Denver, and the offense only put up 15 points in that one. So I don't know if I can trust Cincinnati on the road, but if I had to pick, since I feel like there's no way both the conference championships are going to be 1-2, I'm going to take the Bengals. So what do you think about that? This is one I'm struggling with.
I don't know, because 2 days ago, Teron Davenport for ESPN wrote about Derrick Henry passing a test with contact practice. So he's back practicing. He's back taking contact. Not full contact, mind you, but he has been taking contact. And I kind of want to go back to that wild card game. You mentioned, you know, a dramatic game against the Raiders that came down to the final possession. That was a home game for Cincinnati. And Burrow played really well, 24 of 34, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns in his first playoff game. Jamar Chase in his first playoff game, 9 catches for 118 yards. But, you know, they gave up 310 yards to Derek Carr, admittedly on 54 pass attempts, but, you know, Joe Mixon didn't even rush for 50 yards. The win percentage graph looks really good for the Bengals after, you know, the second quarter. It doesn't really dip back below 75% chance for them to win, just, you know, dragging my finger along it. But this game could have very, very easily been different. I mean, you said dramatic. Dramatic is right. Like, they needed a Derek Carr interception on 4th and goal at the 9 to hold them off, and that was after a fairly questionable Raiders.
Rough ball.
Not only that, but also a spike on 1st and goal.
That too. Yeah.
And that wasn't even the most inane play in the final 30 seconds last weekend. We've got a lot to talk about. But, like, the Raiders got a field goal to cut it within 7. And, you know, I know that for the most part the Bengals were focused on running clock, but they immediately went on a 3-and-out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not something you can afford against Tennessee, even if Derrick Henry's not at 100%. Ryan Tannehill is still a very experienced quarterback, and I'd argue somebody I'd prefer to have over Derek Carr in a playoff game.
Oh, yeah, I would too. He's got the experience as well. Made that run in 2019, took him all the way to the AFC title game against the Chiefs. But, yeah, you mentioned questionable finishes last week, and another team involved in that. It's a good segue into the San Francisco 49ers visiting the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. That's a 7:15 game tomorrow night. And San Francisco got the victory in Dallas. Cowboys tried to come back, but as they were driving down the field in the final minute, needing a touchdown, there were 14 seconds left. Dak Prescott, with no timeouts, took off up the middle, slid down at about the 30, 35-yard line. Might have been closer to 25, but clock was running. The center took the ball and tried to put it down so they could get the spike off, but then the ref came flying in, pushed through the pile, pushed everybody out of the way, and set the ball about a half-yard back himself. So a mental error on the Cowboys, some would say, not to hand the ball to the official.
A mental error to call the play.
Yep, some saying it's on the refs, but, I mean, how about them Cowboys? The narrative of them having these great moments in the regular season and then falling on their face at some points and then eventually not being able to do it in the playoffs just continues for them. And I mean, you feel for Dak because he came back from a lot to get to that point.
Oh, for sure.
And he played a great game as well, especially down the stretch, kept him in it, but Cowboys just not able to get it done. 49ers are a good team. Deebo Samuel, again, was a dual threat. Had a rushing touchdown in that one to
3 catches for 38 yards.
Really helped put the game out of reach. That was the Nickelodeon game as well. That was fun to watch. But San Francisco trying to have upset on their minds, but I don't think Green Bay is going to have any of it.
I will say I've got 2 big problems from this game. The first, as you mentioned, Deebo Samuel, over 100 total yards for him. The Cowboys limited George Kittle and still lost, which I don't think is a very good sign. Ezekiel Elliott was held to 31 rushing yards, and Prescott threw a pick and only threw for 254 yards, which is nice. At some point, I was texting you. So 5:45 p.m. on last Sunday, I believe it was, because you were at the Chiefs game.
Yeah.
I text you, Cowboys are done for, by the way. At that point in the game, it was 23-7 Dallas, and they had just gone 3-and-out.
And I agreed with you.
From that point, here's how San Francisco closes out the game. Punt, pick, punt, punt, Cowboys brain fart. I mean, yeah, you made it to the divisional round, but this is not a team I trust to win that game. I mean, this is still the same Jimmy Garoppolo that had a drive for his life, up 24-20, I believe it was. Or no, down 24-20 against the Chiefs and forced a punt because he couldn't find any of his receivers. And he didn't play badly, 16 of 25, 172 yards and a pick, but that's not going to cut it going into Lambeau against Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely not. That Green Bay defense, once you get into the cold weather, playoff time, they can be really strong. Only question is, can they get past the NFC Championship game, which has been the narrative for them over the past few years. But they got to get there first, see if they can beat San Francisco. Moving on to Sunday, we got the Rams visiting the Buccaneers in what will be an intriguing game at 2 p.m. You would think just on paper that Tampa Bay should be able to win this one without much of a problem, but the Rams stomped the Cardinals on Monday Night Football.
Kyler Murray looked bad.
Yeah, it was OBJ had more passing yards than Kyler. That was
at one point he did.
At one point he did. Yep. So the Rams coming in feeling great about themselves. Matthew Stafford trying to put aside some of the late season interception woes he had, but Tampa Bay, even with a depleted wide receiver core, Godwin out with the injury. Antonio Brown obviously did the whole Antonio Brown thing.
Yep.
Tom Brady had no problems. He carved up the Eagles on Sunday. So now the question is, who will prevail in this one? And I think the difference is the experience of the Buccaneers. That defense is still very, very good. They can get after Stafford, make him feel uncomfortable. And I think Tampa Bay will be able to get revenge on L.A. for their Week 3 win over the Bucs. So I've got the home squad in this one.
I think the key might be the run defense as well, because The Rams rushed for over 140 yards in their victory over the Cardinals, and a lot of that came after the game was well in hand, sure, but still, they're a very solid running team, which can help take some pressure off of Stafford and Kupp. And the Eagles, who normally really love running the ball, couldn't even get to 100 yards as a team rushing. Didn't get a rushing touchdown until the fourth quarter, by which point the game was well in hand for Tampa Bay. So I think the question is going to be whether that Tampa Bay defensive line can stymie the Rams defense. I think they can, and I think Brady goes back to the conference title game.
Yep, so that logic, it'll be Buccaneers-Packers again at Lambeau Field, second consecutive season. That was a great game last year. Should be even better with a full stadium. Last year was probably around half capacity. But now we get to the big game, the one everybody's talking about. Buffalo at Kansas City at 5:30 on Sunday. Chiefs are just 1.5-point favorites. Buffalo, you remember, went in there on Sunday Night Football, went to Arrowhead in mid-October and beat the Chiefs. I think it was 41-23. Josh Allen had a monster game. That was when the Chiefs were still trying to find themselves, but here's the deal. The game's in Kansas City, and Brendan, do you know how many points per game the Chiefs average in Mahomes-era playoff home games?
41.
36, which is still very, very good.
Yeah.
I don't know if Buffalo's going to be able to outduel that. You remember the AFC Championship game last year?
Not really.
Okay, the Bills' offense put up a good fight. They scored 24 points. The only problem is the Chiefs scored 38. They can just get on those runs where it seems like they were unstoppable, and they did that last week against Pittsburgh with the 42-21 win. I think they scored 35 unanswered after going down 7-0. But Buffalo, on the other hand, they blasted New England too, 47-10. So
the perfect 47-17. Yeah, the perfect offensive game.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this could be a shootout, but I think the bottom line is the game's in Kansas City. Mahomes is phenomenal in playoff games in Kansas City, and I think that's going to be the difference. Chiefs defense knows how to make some plays as well. That pass rush of Frank Clark and Chris Jones can get after Josh Allen a little bit as well, especially late in the game. So I'll take Kansas City, but not by much.
Yeah, have you ever seen that Josh Allen thing where it's like he's never had two good games back-to-back? Like, every game he's had a QBR above, like, 85, and his next game the QBR drops below, like, 65 or something.
I haven't seen
that. I don't know. It was a graphic on, I think, First Things First earlier this week. But basically, Josh Allen, as most NFL fans know, is pretty inconsistent. And Patrick Mahomes, I would say, is the exact opposite of consistent. He's basically as much of a sure thing, 350 yards passing, as you're going to get in the NFL since probably prime Peyton Manning. He hasn't thrown for below 250 yards in his last 5 games. His touchdown to interception ratio over those last 5 is 15-2. So, I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good about the Chiefs' chances heading into this. I believe I had Bills-Chiefs happening as well, and I put, as you did, I think, I put Josh Allen as the X factor. I think this game's going to be close. I think more than likely it comes down to one possession. The only way it doesn't is if Josh Allen reverts to like 2019, early 2020 Josh Allen form and throws like 3 picks. But yeah, I think the Chiefs escape, and I think the Chiefs are going back to the AFC title game.
So did you say Cincinnati or Tennessee in that?
I don't.
Titans game.
No.
I'm going to rock with the Bengals just because I don't think it's going to be 1 versus 2 and 1 versus 2.
Okay.
You still need some time. That's all right. You got till 3:30 tomorrow.
Titans.
Titans? Okay,
yeah.
so...
I mean, it's not like this matters anyway. I won the picks battle.
Well, okay.
You still owe me $50.
All right.
You still owe me $50 for that, by the way.
Oh, so now that's the reward?
We've got that in writing, I think.
I never agreed to that.
You wrote it down.
When?
You were the one who came up with it. You were like, hey, we should do a picks battle for like $50.
Oh, my gosh. Anyway, now that NFL has much less games to talk about, the playoffs, talk a little bit about college basketball now. Gonzaga is still the number 1 team in the country. They've gotten into the conference part of their schedule, so it's expected that they should remain there for the rest of the year. But Auburn has moved all the way up to number 2. Purdue was at number 4. Indiana took them down a couple nights ago. Wisconsin has moved up to number 8. Chucky Hepburn in his freshman year getting plenty of attention. Top 10 team. Just went in there and drained a half-court buzzer beater to end the first half at Northwestern. Brennan, I got to ask, how do you feel about going to a school where Chucky Hepburn is going to own you for the next 3 years?
Nothing new. Nothing new
I
at
suppose.
all. And speaking of Wisconsin, I think we really, really need to talk about Johnny Davis as National Player of the Year, the sophomore guard for the Badgers. And, we've seen a little bit of talk about that, mostly from Wisconsin fans, which is fairly sensible in my opinion. But now he's actually starting to get some national talk about it, and he just might win it, averaging 22 points, 7.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists on 44% shooting. Big game tonight for the Badgers, sitting at 15-2 and currently number 8 in the country. They take on number 14, Michigan State, at home. They're favored by 3.5. That's an FS1 game. That's a pretty national stage for Davis. Who, those averages, by the way, points, rebounds, and assists, leads his team in all of them, playing 35 minutes a game. If he's able to put up a stat line like, let's say 25, 10, and 5, he's definitely got all the momentum heading into February, especially when you consider that he'll close it out with a home game against the Nebraska Cornhuskers, still winless in conference play, and a home game, I believe, against Minnesota. So Johnny Davis is already really starting to get a lot of momentum for that National Player of the Year, and if he keeps this up, he'll probably win it.
Yep, and when you just look down the line of at least most points per game, he's the guy who is on a nationally contending team and has the most points per game at 22. Max Asmus is up there from Oral Roberts, but they're not ranked. Keegan Murray from Iowa up there as well. However, they're not ranked yet, but 13 and 5. They're pretty close, but yeah, Johnny Davis, just 7 points per game his freshman year. To step up to 22 is pretty amazing, and he's been at his best when Wisconsin's really needed him. I remember he had that crazy tournament in Las Vegas back in November. So
I will say, keep an eye out for Johnny Juzang of UCLA. He helped lead him on that spectacular Final Four run last year. 18 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. UCLA currently a top 10 team in the country, number 9 right now. And they've got a couple of big games coming up. Versus Arizona on the 25th. Arizona's currently number 3. At Arizona, February 3rd. At USC, who's a ranked team, on February 12th. Versus USC to close out the regular season. If anyone can do it, it's Juzang, because his run last year during March Madness was spectacular.
Yeah,
so I'd say those two guys are my early picks for Player of the Year.
Just looking at a couple other upsets from this past week. Number 6 Duke fell to Florida State in Tallahassee. That was a big one. And then as well, number 13 LSU falling to Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And Marquette went on the road to Villanova, who had been playing well in conference action. Beat them 57-54. Creighton got a big one as well over St. John's, 87-64, with 28 points from Alex O'Connell. But yep, still in the thick of the sports world.
Oh, yeah, Northwestern beat number 10 Michigan State last week.
That too, yeah, I watched that one. It was a crazy finish.
Wildcats are going to March Madness, baby.
We'll see. Got to keep an eye on my Fighting Irish, too. They've played pretty well.
I mean, we don't have to.
Maybe. We'll see. Beat Fordham on Monday. That was a good win after loss to VT.
Fordham,
the
powerhouse.
It's like a 3-point game, too. But, hey, we'll take it.
Jeez, man.
Anyway, yeah. We'll get to one more local piece of news in a moment here. But, yeah, big world for sports right now. College basketball right in the middle of conference play. Obviously, the NFL playoffs, NBA, which we'll take a deep dive into next week. NHL as well, rolling right along. But also the question of whether or not we can get out of this MLB lockout. There were some discussions that didn't amount to anything on Monday. So we'll see what the heck ends up happening there. Spring training's only about a month away, if you can believe it. But
supposed to be.
Supposed to be, yep. Not sure if anybody's going to be able to report, but speaking of controversies and questions, Gretna just had their state football title stripped.
Shouldn't we get a little intro to this segment?
Oh, I see where you're going. Okay, let her rip.
What is happening?
That's what a lot of people had to say yesterday.
Oh, yeah, I was one of them. So, I mean, I'll put it this way, and then you can kind of take over.
Mm-hmm.
This situation was so insane that the Cowboys' decision to run a quarterback draw with 14 seconds left and no timeouts was shoved out of our what is happening slot.
Took a backseat.
Just so we could talk about this, much like the Cowboys did.
Yeah, so Gretna, news came out yesterday. Obviously, they won the state football title in Class A over Westside with that 7-3 defensive battle win at Memorial Stadium. The news came out yesterday that they were having their title taken away from them and they'd have to return the trophy due to an ineligible player. And while the full details are still being uncovered, there's news about a potential illegal transfer situation, a fake address being used, but we still don't know the full details of that yet, so we'll let that be uncovered first. But yeah, I mean, you got to feel awful for the kids at Gretna that had no idea that situation was going on. I mean, they worked hard for that title. I mean, and they played extremely well throughout their run. I remember we were at that game in the semifinals against Omaha North covering that. It was 10 degrees outside, and their offense was just cooking right along, no problem. So that was a fun team to watch, and it's a shame for the kids that didn't know about it. But wow. No state champion for 2021, just going to be completely unlisted.
Yeah, looking at the KTV article, because I believe they were the first to break the news, they ruled that one of Gretna's players, a receiver for him, had not changed his domicile by NSA rules. Gretna players can keep their medals, but the title is going to be vacated. So really, it's just incredible. I mean, I remember seeing stuff like, this is the first time a title has been stripped in a major Class A sport since, like, the 30s. Mm-hmm. First time a Class A football title has been stripped like this ever. It's just insane because, I had no idea anything was going on until now. Some people were like, oh, yeah, we knew there was an investigation going on. But, when news like this comes out, it's just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Gretna loses their title, and we push on with basketball season, and I guess football season we'll have nobody to defend the title. So I guess it's all there for the taking, hopefully for Marty Brown and company. But we'll see how that turns out. Yeah, huge news there, completely unexpected. NSAA did what the MLB did not do with the Astros in terms of taking away the title for cheating or using a legal player or whatever you want to define it as. But yeah, that's that, and that'll about wrap it up for this episode here today. Be sure to tune into the West Side game tonight on Warrior Television and the Prep versus Bryan game tomorrow on CPSN. Brendan, you got anything else before we sign off?
Well, you covered the promotional stuff for basketball, so I guess keep an eye out for the swim team as well. They won their meet in Minnesota a couple weeks ago, and they're still looking like they're back to their old dominant ways. Powerlifting and wrestling both doing well as always. Getting back into the swing of things here still feels kind of surreal. This is the last semester of our high school careers, but we will try to get as many podcasts out as possible if you guys will continue listening to them. So thanks for that. Watch some basketball and have a wonderful weekend.
Yep, have a great weekend, everybody. Same time next Thursday morning. All right, see you next time.